There it is. Hello.
Hello. First of all, I want to start and tell you what a privilege it is to be in this space with you. Thank you
Oh,
so much for
well.
responding to my question and my invitation to be here.
Well, I mean, this is the time, we all have to kind of link arms and stand together. So I'm happy to pick up any invitation I can to come talk about these things and try to educate and give people hope and a way to fight back, hopefully.
Great, and that's what we want to talk about. And I just lost Rev Arda, but I wanted to introduce you. Hopefully she'll be coming back on. But Rev Arda is my colleague, my seminary sister, and she's my director of programming and partnerships. And she has a whole history of advocacy and social justice work, so I knew that she would contribute to our conversation together. I also know
Fantastic.
your time is limited, so if you could just tell the people who are here. First of all, I wanted to ask you, are you okay that I'm recording this?
Yes, yes, please
Okay,
do.
and I will probably promote this in different places if you're okay with that without
Yep.
saying the name. Okay. So if you would tell people a little bit about what you do, and Rev Art, I just gave an introduction to you, of you as, okay. If you could tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, and so that they can get context around this, why we're so excited about you being here.
Sure. So I'm Andrew Seidel. I'm a constitutional and civil rights attorney. I've been fighting my entire career to keep state and church separate because that ensures religious freedom for everyone, for all. I've written a couple books on this issue. The first book is The Founding Myth: Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American. The second book, which is just disturbingly poignant, is American Crusade: How the Supreme Court is Weaponizing Religious Freedom. I just got the hardbacks, the hard copies in the mail the other day. It's really exciting. There's a whole chapter in there about Hobby Lobby and Roe
Oh,
versus
wow.
Wade
Can't
and
wait to read it.
everything that's happening. Yes. So, I mean, this is, I think, the fight of our lifetimes. I think it's the fight of our lives right now. I am with Americans United for the separation of church and state, au.org. I would really encourage everybody to go look up the org and join. We need all the help we can get right now.
So moderators, can you put that in the comments, please? au.org is Andrew's organization, where Andrew is working. Andrew, I watched your video where you talked about the leaked SCOTUS document, and
Mm-hmm.
you said that this is unprecedented to have this leak.
Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit, not so much about, we're not going to care who the leak's from, it's here. You
Yeah.
said it's a legit document. Could you just talk about why this is unprecedented?
I mean, the Supreme Court is really shrouded in secrecy, and in the modern era, we've never seen anything like this. To be clear, we don't even know why this leaked. I don't know whether it was deliberate or whether this was unintentional. And I, of course, have my theories about what happened and why and who did it. But I think the important thing here is the opinion itself. And actually, let me say that the most important thing here that everybody listening needs to understand is that this is a draft opinion. It is not the law of the land. If you have an appointment at a clinic, keep it. If you need one, get one. Do a telemedicine, get your mifepristone, like stock up. The law of the land has not changed yet. So that's the number one thing. And I'll also add on here, this is not my area of expertise. It's definitely adjacent. There are many other lawyers out there who've been doing just phenomenal, important work fighting for reproductive rights that know far more than me, but I am happy to do what I can here to help people. And that's the second thing I think that needs to be said about this draft is that it is a draft. It is real. It's not a final opinion. But if the final opinion looks anything like this, it's going to be bad. And I think it's really important to know that this opinion is the version of America that Justice Alito and four other justices want. So even if it gets whittled down or diluted, or maybe there's backlash to the league and maybe John Roberts does some horse trading behind the scenes or whatever, this is still the future that they want.
Yeah.
And they have lifetime appointments and the power to make this happen. And I mean, it is a bleak future. This draft document is extreme. It is aggressive. It is abrasive, absolutist, and utterly uncompromising while also being very, very broad. It is full of gaslighting and Alito's personal religious beliefs, which is also additional gaslighting because he cloaks his personal religious beliefs and makes them kind of implicit in this opinion that is otherwise really in your face. But the first and last paragraphs really, I think, encapsulate that sort of implicit religion in the opinion, and it's also implicit in his overall attempt to claim that abortion is just different. So that's me just rambling on about it, and I'm going to stop because I know there's probably a ton of questions. I'll let you actually ask some.
No, this is all fascinating, and I thank you so much. But right before I came on this live, I did see a video. TikTok is educating me in so many ways. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I saw, because they made a point. People are making a point to say that okay, abortion isn't part of the Constitution, but neither are those lifetime appointments of Supreme Court justices. So when we look at these decisions or changing the structure of the Supreme Court in order to protect it from these extremist views, what options do we have?
Yeah, good question. So the lifetime appointments are part of the Constitution. The language is
wrong.
Well, the language is during good behavior, which has been interpreted to mean a lifetime appointment. But the number of justices on the Supreme Court is not set in the Constitution. So that is something that we can change with a simple law that Congress could pass. They could change the number to 13. They could change the number to 31. Could make it 400. Dilute their power all we want would be my goal. I do talk about in American Crusade. I have a final chapter devoted to talking about possible solutions and going over the pluses and minuses and what could actually happen. And really, what I boil it down to is the only workable real solution is expanding the Supreme Court. And now that means a different political landscape. But really the only option there is expanding the Supreme Court. And I want to back up to the beginning of that question too, because yeah, of course the Constitution doesn't say anything about abortion. It doesn't say anything about women. It was written by white men and white men only. Like women are not in the Constitution at all, and neither are Black, and well, there are some indigenous and people of color, but never in a positive way, as in you have equal rights.
Right.
So there's also, well, I'll pause there and say, that's of course why you can't find it. And that's the original Constitution. We do have later amendments that address some of these important issues, including the 14th and the 19th Amendment.
Rev Arda, would you like to ask a question before I go to the next one?
Andrew, do you think that they will expand the court and do away with the filibuster?
I don't know. I don't know that there's the political will to do that right now. I argued that was the first thing that should have happened after Donald Trump was replaced. Especially, I thought, after January 6th and some of the things that we saw happening around the challenges there. I don't know what is going to happen with the backlash against this decision. That to me is the question: is how angry are we going to get collectively, and how much are we going to rebel against this court and this decision? That is the question, because if it's a big enough revolt, then anything is possible. But it also all has to translate into political action and activism. And part of the problem that we're seeing here is that the Christian nationalists who put Trump into power and who packed the court, they're not going to be satisfied with just this decision. They're coming for so much more. And it's no accident that the court is deciding this case now after it gutted the Voting Rights Act in the Shelby County case in 2013, and then again in the Brnovich case in 2020, after it upheld partisan gerrymandering in the Rucho case in 2019, right? These decisions protect the power of conservative white Christian men who would otherwise be subsumed in a demographic tide that would keep them out of office, right? It's no accident that they did all that stuff first, and now they're coming for these issues. So the question to me is, we need to have a revolution, essentially, a revolt against this, and how big is it going to be? How angry are people going to get?
Yeah.
Well, you're talking our language. So as we like to tell people, you're in a safe space here. And we get this question a lot, where we have been sounding this alarm for a long time, where people would say we were overreacting, and bring the women, the insults, the misogyny along, that I was just being emotional and things like that. But people are now looking for actionable steps, and not so much as reacting right now, where we're calling for a strike this week. No, this requires strategy, and it requires action steps. When we're talking about a systematic, actionable steps that brings us up to collective, and like you said, we are the majority. We are the majority. If we were able to elect the people that would protect the rights of Americans, especially the historically marginalized, then we would see an entirely different landscape in the Supreme Court and in government. So what can we do collectively? What would be those action steps to have a revolution?
I mean, that's so important. That's the question I think that everybody's asking. And I want to I'm going to answer it, but I want to step back for just a second and talk about this in a broader context too, because I think it's really crucial that everybody grasp that, so that the steps make more sense and they can see that there is more that they can do than just this putting out this immediate fire. So I have been fighting my entire career for the separation of church and state. And the reason I chose that battlefield, that fight, is because progress there gives us progress on so many other important progressive issues. It removes the roadblocks to real solutions on things like LGBTQ rights, women's rights, public education, the environment. I mean, you name it, a robust separation of state and church has an impact in all of those arenas. And this is one of the few things, not one of the few things, one of the things that our founders got so very right. There's a lot wrong with our Constitution. I've already touched on a few of those things, right? But this is one of the things they got right. And we were the first Constitution to get that right. I mean, the separation of state and church is an American original. It is an American invention. The idea was floating around in the Enlightenment, but it was first implemented in the American experiment. And until then, no other nation in the history of the world had sought to protect its citizens' ability to think freely by separating state and church. That separation is what ensures that we all have freedom without favor and equality without exception. That separation is what ensures that we have religious freedom. That separation is America. And if the justices finally tear down that constitutional wall that ensures that separation, they are tearing down America and erecting on its ashes a Christian nation. I just wrote an article about this for Religion Dispatch, is really trying to lay this out. I would encourage everybody to go read it. So this is part of the bigger fight, and we have taken that separation for granted. If you care about racial justice, if you care about our democracy, if you care about reproductive justice and LGBTQ equality and our environment and free and fair and fantastic public education for all, if you care about freedom without favor and equality without exception, you should be joining Americans United at au.org to fight for these things right now. Because the attacks on church-state separation are putting the lives and freedom of countless women at risk. They are threatening LGBTQ people and religious minorities and the religious freedom of everyone who is not a conservative white Christian man. So if you want to fight back, it is really time to join up and join the bigger fight. Join Americans United. So that's one thing I really want to say. And what can you do? I think that opens up a broader range of options for folks, right? I mean, again, I came into this fight because I knew that if I was successful here, we would be successful in so many other places. So I honestly think that the number one thing we need to be doing is fighting Christian nationalism and fighting for a national recommitment to the separation of state and church. You don't have, Rachel Lazar is the president and CEO of Americans United. She likes to say that reproductive freedom is religious freedom. And that, to me, that just rings so true, because you don't, in a country with a robust separation of state and church where everybody honors that, you don't have people trying to use the law, use the machinery of the state to impose their religion on everybody with decisions like that, like the one that Alito drafted. And that really is what we are seeing. So, at Americans United, we have this amazing legal team that is in the Supreme Court last week, arguing important cases, doing its damnedest to fight these legal battles to prevent America from turning into a Christian nation. We have an amazing policy team that is constantly lobbying on the Hill. We have this great team of youth fellows, and we just opened up these youth fellowship applications for the next round, so hopefully people watching might apply for that. And then the second big thing I think that people need to do right now is support abortion funds. I mean, these are the folks that are on the ground doing the hard work, ensuring that pregnant people get the health care they need in the face of those religious extremists that are trying to force their beliefs on us all, right? So, that is absolutely crucial. And then after realizing that this is part of a broader fight, and after supporting abortion funds, I really think it is time for everybody to start getting political, right? Like, we have learned that voting is not enough. We've already talked about how the deck is stacked against us. That is the bare minimum that you can do. And if you don't want to live in a country like this, you need to be doing a lot more.
Mm-hmm. There's a sense of this apolitical, I'm not into politics, does not fly any longer. And
No.
I'm amazed at the number of people who are still saying this.
You may not be into politics, but if you have a uterus, politics is in your uterus now. I mean, you do not have a choice in the matter anymore, right? Everything is political.
Absolutely.
I have a question about the draft itself, because like you said, it's not law yet, but based on your experience when the Supreme Courts have drafted this opinion, and it looks like it has the numbers, how often, or do we even know that these drafts exist? They're not leaked, but then how often does what the drafts say change to when they hand a ruling down?
Yeah, great question. And they do change for sure. And we know about this not because they're leaked at the time, but because we do see these things later on. After justices retire, their papers often get handed to the Library of Congress, for instance, and scholars go through them. And so you can look at the evolution of cases and see how they've changed. There's this really important school prayer case that the Supreme Court decided in 1992 called Lee versus Weissman. It was a 5-4 decision, and Anthony Kennedy was the swing vote. Anthony Kennedy has been replaced by Brett Kavanaugh recently. And Kennedy actually initially voted to uphold the school prayer when they had their conference. So I'll back up even a little bit more. So after oral argument, parties are arguing at the Supreme Court. The justices have a conference, and they basically vote, and they say, okay, who's for this side, who's for this side? And then the senior justice on whichever side assigns the opinion to that side, and then the chief justice, if he is on the other side, assigns that side's opinion. Okay, so it's either the chief justice assigning the opinion or the senior most judge, and then they circulate those opinions, and everybody kind of has input, weighs in, makes comments, suggestions, changes, and that can change people's minds. So in that school prayer case, Anthony Kennedy saw what was Scalia's opinion was going to be the majority controlling opinion, and Anthony Kennedy read it and said, yeah, that's wrong. I'm going to change my mind. And so he flipped his vote. The Scalia opinion, which would have been the controlling one, actually became the dissent. And then Kennedy wrote the controlling majority opinion. That is rare. And we know that's rare because we've seen the evolution on these other cases. I would not expect something like that to happen here. There is some good speculation that the reason we saw this leaked draft was to keep the conservatives on the court in line with this opinion. Essentially, the idea being keep all of them on board and not jump ship to John Roberts's more diluted but still very, very awful opinion that he seems to be drafting. And by releasing it now, they're kind of essentially forcing all of the conservatives to maintain that opinion. Otherwise, they will be pilloried in the media as turncoats and things like that, which is what has happened to Roberts. So there is speculation that is why this opinion was leaked, which would mean it was leaked by somebody on the conservative side, Alito, Thomas, Barrett, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh. We don't know anything about that yet. And I still think that's less important than the way Alito actually wrote his opinion. And it was so shocking to read the manner in which he decided to do this. So I'll say, I do not think things are going to change markedly. And what I do worry about now, what I fear now, is that because this is such an absolutist and just scathing and really disrespectful opinion from Alito, that when it gets diluted, as it inevitably would, even a little bit, that is going to be the narrative in the media when it comes down. And it's going to be like, well, look, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. Instead of half the country has just been robbed of their bodily autonomy. So that's one thing that I'm worried about, and I would caution everybody against. And if you see that happen when the opinion finally comes down, to rage.
And that goes back to getting political. And I do want to dig into that a little farther, but I wanted to give the people who are here commenting the opportunity to ask questions. So before I ask this question to Andrew, please go ahead and start putting any question that you have in the comments, and we're going to come back to those in a minute. I see a lot of people typing in, but I'm not sure they're actual questions, so I'd like to get some questions to Andrew. And Andrew, I might make you a little uncomfortable with this.
That's okay.
This getting political, and remember I said this is a safe space, but it's also public. But in my videos, if you've watched any of them, I also get very critical of the Democratic Party, the Democrat Party, because I feel like there's more that could have been done and should have been done that was based on some of the rhetoric that was out there during the 2020 campaigns to get elected. And I would like to have being more aggressive, and I'm muting my words, as Rev Arda can attest, because I get pretty fired up about feeling like there's not much more we can do. But how exactly can people get political in constructive, productive, influential ways? I'm seeing things like people saying, call your senator right now and tell him that you oppose this. Does that really have any influence on what the Supreme Court is going to do, or how they'll influence this? So what are some tangible ways that you can actually get political?
I think those are important things to do, but I think people need to recalibrate their expectations. There's nothing that can be done about this opinion right now. The Supreme Court is not answerable to anybody, and they have lifetime appointments. When I'm talking about getting political, I'm talking about solving this problem down the road, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 from now. This opinion is going to come down in some way, shape, or form. That was, many of the court watchers have been saying this for a long time. I also have been called dramatic, and I've not been said that I was too emotional because I'm a dude, but like the idea that this was going to happen was so clear to me, and has been for so long, and especially during the Amy Coney Barrett nomination, when I felt like I was screaming about not just this, but about all of the things that are coming next, the things that Justice Alito laid out as a hit list in his opinion. again, the end of Roe is just the beginning in many ways. They are coming for after they get that abortion is not a right. They are coming for a nationwide abortion ban to criminalize it, either through fetal personhood, something like that. They're coming for contraception. I've been told that I'm crazy for thinking that, but I don't know. I remember this case called the Hobby Lobby case where they actually said that contraception caused abortions, and the Supreme Court was like, yeah, if you believe that and it's your religion, then that's fine. They are coming for contraception. They are coming for marriage equality. They are coming for everything they can.
Yes.
And so if you have to get political, because this is, again, the end of Roe is just the beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I share people's frustration with the way things are, but I would encourage you to remember the entire political system we have is stacked in favor of conservative white Christian men retaining their power and privilege. Right? We are fighting against the system that they built for themselves to retain that power and privilege. And that what you're seeing right now happening is they are raging against the dying of that privilege. Right? They are looking out and they see a black president. They see the demographic studies saying that whites are not going to be the majority in this country in sometime in the 2040s. That Protestants are no longer the majority in this country. We have a female black vice president for the first time. They are scared, and they are raging against the dying of their privilege, and they are doing massive, massive damage right now. The question to me is whether or not we are going to be able to undo that damage. We can stop the bleeding and resuscitate America.
Well, thank you for being candid, because what I heard there is this is just the beginning, and the fight will take years.
Yeah.
And we can't give up. And that's one thing I've been seeing people talk about, getting their passports renewed and planning to leave, but that doesn't help the historically marginalized.
No,
that doesn't
it does
help
not.
the historically oppressed. And if
You're
we're
leaving them behind, in fact.
yes. Not that I don't think we should protect ourselves. I'm taking steps to do that myself, but I think that if we're Americans, we have to work for the good of the whole.
Right.
So first and foremost, we have to look at this collectively as just not someone else's problem that we get to escape from. So, all right, I promised that I would let people say there. You can ask a question, Rev Arda, while I'm looking for this. Or
We have some really good questions that I was looking at as they were coming up, and one of them, which I also thought about this was a question I had as well. So it's clear that 3 of the justices lied. During
very good question.
Are there any repercussions for that? Could there be any repercussions for that?
Yeah, this is a realpolitik question, right? Because theoretically, that is accurate, and theoretically that is correct. They would of course turn around and say, no, the case was presented to us, and now with all the full information and looking at it, I just decided it, these past few months. I think we all know that to be the case, not to be the case. But the only option to get a Supreme Court justice off the court is impeachment, and that has only happened once in our history. The impeached justice was not convicted, so they remained. It was unsuccessful, in other words. The better thing to do would be, if we have the political capital for that, would be to expand the court massively. Yeah. Right? That would be the far better solution to that concern. I get that it is unjust and that it grates on our sense of fairness and justice to know that happened. The fact that there are people sitting in stolen seats makes me feel the same way. That Gorsuch and that Barrett are on that. Barrett was put on the court in the fastest confirmation hearings ever, in the middle of a presidential election when 50 million people had already voted. After they put Gorsuch on the court, saying we could never put somebody on when the voters need to be the ones to decide. It's of course so unjust. That is the point, right? They did it that way because they don't care. They're trying to preserve their power and privilege using these lifetime appointments.
Okay, let me see if there's another question here. I think a lot of them we have answered. I'm going to, Reverend Arda, if you can look through them and see if one that we haven't touched on. My question is regarding the midterms, and then I know we're running out of time. I knew this would go by quickly with you. And I so appreciate this, and hopefully we can do this again sometime in the future.
Absolutely.
I do that live, so I'm kind of getting you to. That was kind of my own passive aggressive.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it. Had you said it offline first, I would have also said
okay, yes, great, thank you.
There's actually quite a few questions here.
Okay, I just want to ask real quickly about the midterms, and then Rev Arda, if you can ask a couple of those. Is it realistic to think that, I'm seeing a lot about pushing people to the polls, is it realistic that we can turn the tide and sweep out what we think is going to happen with a huge Republican victory in the midterms that could impact the change that we need? Or how are you feeling? And be honest and candid about how you're feeling about the midterms.
I think one of the only solutions, and I'm trying to say this, maybe I'll just say it clearly, the solution to what is happening is political.
Okay.
I mean, they have lifetime appointments on the Supreme Court, and that is not going to change. That power can be diluted with political solutions by expanding the Supreme Court, for instance. So, I mean, to me, that is the road to changing what we are seeing happening right now.
Okay.
That is really the only avenue. I get all these tons of great people who are very excited and energetic, contacting me with ideas for lawsuits, talking about bodily autonomy, and those lawsuits are going to this Supreme Court that just overturned 50 decades of precedents in one of the most poorly reasoned decisions based on bad history I've ever seen. It's not a good opinion. Not even just from what it does, just how poorly written and reasoned and argued it is. There was this really brief, great moment during the oral argument of this case. This is the case that we're talking about is Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. That's the underlying case here. And Justice Sotomayor just cut through all of the pretense that has been built up around this issue. And she asked Mississippi, she said, how is your interest anything but a religious view? Mm-hmm. And the state just fumbled for an answer. They had no idea. I mean, this is imposing one particular conservative religion on everybody. That is what is happening. And that's why I'm fighting for the separation of church and state. And that's why if you want a solution, we really need to all get very political.
Okay. Rev Arda, is there any question?
There's actually there's one really good question about where do checks and balances lie for the Supreme Court?
Yeah. I mean, the check on the Supreme Court is supposed to be impeachment, and historically the Supreme Court has pretended that it is above politics and that it is not a political branch, and I think we are seeing the evaporation of that myth. And this is one of the things I talk about a lot in American Crusade. Is I write something like, you have to unshackle your mind from the myth that you were taught in schools that the Supreme Court is a body that is designed solely with justice in mind. It is just not. That is not what we have.
It's like a level of deconstruction that we talk about all the time from all these indoctrinations, including our education.
It is. I had not, but that's a great way to say it. I may have to borrow that when I talk about the book more.
Yeah, do. Andrew, our time is up, and I want to be respectful that you gave us even more than the 30 minutes that you have. Thank you so very much. For those of you who came in late, Andrew Seidel, constitutional lawyer, just a book coming out. Is it out yet?
It's available for pre-order, but it's not out yet.
What's the first book, Andrew? There's another book. What are both?
Okay.
I think I have it. The first book is The Founding Myth: Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American. That book is out. It does. It's got like 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon. It does all right. People like it.
I can't wait to read it. And
Yeah, if
also,
you want, I mean, if you want to know how to fight back against the disinformation of Christian nationalism, all of the lies and historical myths that make up that identity and that justify that identity, and want to learn how to kind of really gut punch back at Christian nationalism, The Founding Myth is the book for you.
and I want to close with reminding people what Andrew said as far as number one, support au.org, where Andrew is affiliated with. Also support abortion services and providing funds. And also the most important thing is we have to get political. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Andrew, once again, and we'll hopefully we'll do this very, very soon and keep people informed. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Rev Arda, if you can hang on for just a second. Thank you.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Now, if I can just figure out how to get off.
You can stay here all night with us. You can stay here all night with us. Oh, that was more than what I could even imagine, Rev Arda. Thank you for being here as well. Thank you all for you are part of this. I'm sorry we could not get to all of your questions, especially when someone who is as knowledgeable and experienced as Andrew comes in. You can imagine the passion and all the questions that arise. So I hope this was informative for you, but it's time for us to, like I always end my videos, stay awake, use your voice. We have to vote. We have to become political. We got here is because we fell asleep.
Yeah. And don't forget, folks, we are going to be continuing these conversations on Patreon in a private forum. And we'll be able to talk openly without worrying about trolls and all that kind of stuff. So please head over to Patreon, join us in community where we're really going to look for solutions to these problems. And I hate to say this because I hate sounding like the Grim Reaper, but our problems are just beginning.
They are. We're in this for the long haul. We got to dig in.
That's right. And we have to get active. We have to get loud, and we have to do it together.
Thank you all very much. We will be back here very soon. I promise. There's been hundreds of you here. I am just so honored that after months that you have come in here to support us. And we'll be back very soon to discuss more about this. Thank you all. Thank you, Rev Arda.
Thanks, friend.